Ladies and gentlemen, Panel 8 entitled Iran, a Dilemma and an Opportunity will start now.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. جمهور الكريم, gentlemen, your excellencies, thank you again for staying with us in yet another exciting session in this 11th Abu Dhabi Strategic Debate. I'm very excited to facilitate this panel with three distinguished speakers, and also very excited about the topic. Because we're discussing Iran, a country that has always been judged by perceptions rather than by realities, as Dr. Dehshiri said. And one of those issues, one of the dilemmas that we've dealt with Iran pertaining to perception, is that we've always seen it as Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. It's the same, person, but two different personalities. So when you're shaking your hand, Iran's hand, you don't know whose hand you're shaking. Is it Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde? And I think the sort of direction is to bring more of Dr. Jekyll, less of Mr. Hyde into the region. And I think we would like to discuss what is Iran, what's its view to this region internally. And I have a number of questions that is only worthy of a gathering like this. And a note to the audience, we will conduct the conversation in English, but Dr. Al-Zghool, I think, will make far more succinct discussions if he speaks in Arabic. So please feel free if you wanted to talk in Arabic. And without further ado, we have limited time and I have so many questions for you. Let me start with this big question and everyone is asking. And I will start with you, Dr. Sajjadpour. Will there be another attack? Another attack from Iran to Israel? Are we going to see an expansion of the cycle of violence? Is it going to be an attack after another, a wave after another? Or is there going to be a stop of that cycle?
First of all, let me start by the name of God and thank God for giving me such an opportunity to be here, and also thank Dr. Kazem for inviting me. And I think she is doing an excellent job in this region, which everybody is impressed. Furthermore, I have really to emphasize her humanistic dimension, which goes beyond all policy circles, and that is a very personal issue. When I was sick for my heart surgery, she was so concerned, and that was very impressive, a very humanistic approach, which I think is more important than all think tanking. Beyond that, I think in order to answer your question, I think if you let me very shortly, I have a type of conceptual framework.
Oh my God.
Very quickly, of course, for understanding Iran. I think your question cannot be answered if we don't look deeply and conceptually to how Iran is perceived and how Iran should be analyzed. First, I think there are a type of ABC, very concise. A, alarmistic Iran. You have to be alarmed about Iran always in the analytical community, dangerous Iran, securitized Iran. B, you have a binary vision of Iran in the literature, either this or that, attack or not attack, reformist, conservative. And finally, what you have is a constructed Iran, which is different from real Iran. And I think these type of analysis are reductionist. They don't produce understanding. How we can understand Iran? Very quickly. Now I start by C, then B, then A. Continuity and change. Iran is country there for centuries. Geography continues. History continues. Political structure of Iran continues. But it is also continuity along with change. There is change in the fabric of society everywhere, including Iran, change in the region, change globally. And I think Iran should balance between different realities on the scene, and including what you mentioned. Is there any attack or not? It depends on our strategic calculation, and we have to balance between our defense, realities on the ground, and so on and so forth. But there is one final point, that is, Iran is an actor. We are not a passive element there in the region. And our actorship is clearly for a region with peace, cooperation with all neighbors, cooperation with the region. And let me end here very directly on your question. Iran is not the real, let's say, issue as it is depicted in the literature, especially by Zionists and its supporters regime. The cause of this issue of attack is the Palestinian plight and the Israeli attempt to not just contain, but to ignore Palestinians. Iran is supporting Palestinian cause as any other, let's say, individual in this region, and is very proud of its support of Palestinian cause. Israel is trying to say that this is an Iranian-Israeli issue. It's not. It is in a broader, let's say, contextual analysis. You see Israel in a very specific situation, but do we answer attack right now? We have said that there will be no doubt that Iran would respond. But when? It depends on our calculation, timing, situation is decided at the most important security levels, but we defend. Iran has proved as an actor is very sensitive.
I think that's
that's clear.
Segue to the next question, but I take your answer that Iran can attack. Whether it will attack or not, how will it attack, when will it attack, is based on a strategic calculation.
Exactly.
Fantastic. So there is a calculation, and things can change if the calculation changes. I'll take your point and move to Dr. Dehshiri. I mean, since October 7th, we've noticed that Iran has played a more of a self-restrained approach to different attacks from Israel, possibly, I mean, in the view of many people, was designed to bring Iran into an open war between Israel and as, I mean, was this a strategic view that this is a Palestinian-Israeli conflict, that we will not be drawn into it? Or has this strategy changed now after the cycle of attack? Do you think that what is happening right now would require Iran to move away from the self-restraint, operating within a framework of international law, international cooperation, which we've witnessed very obviously in the last few months? Is there a shift in that strategy or not? And again, if you can be short, okay, allow me to go through other questions.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let me thank Dr. Ebtesam for inviting me, and I would like to express my gratitude for taking part in this very interesting strategic debate. I would like to say that, as Dr. Sajjadpour expressed, the source, or we can say the main date for the Israeli-Palestinian issue is not October 7th. Exactly. It is the source of all these disputes is occupation. That means that that reaction to occupation existed before, and it would be further for the future as well. Therefore, we cannot say that this is the only turning point in this region. There was before also some turning points that had shaped regional structure and processes. This is the first observation. Secondly, Iran has a continuous policy of supporting Palestinian cause. And that is not only in our constitution, but also this is a belief in our elite, political elite, that we should support Palestine. Israel is the source of tension. It has expansionist view from river to the sea, and also apartheid regime. Therefore, we should help this.
But Dr. Dehshiri, I'm specifically talking about the self-restraint that has been shown in the past few months, which was not the way Iran usually behaved.
Iran was always a rational actor in the region. Iran has always defensive posture. We never attacked a country. We responded to the Israeli provocations, and therefore, during Iran-Iraq war, Iran was attacked, Iran replied. And this was also, Israel was the beginner of this attack, and therefore we responded.
I see your point on defensive action, even though forward defense is another contention point. But I'll move to Dr. Mohammad Al-Zghool, and I will remind you that yesterday in Riyadh, in the Arab and Islamic Summit, we've heard a continuous condemnation of the attack on Iran. And where do you see this? Is this part of a de-escalation tactic, or is it another view, a strategic view to how to deal with Iran?
شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed, and I seize this opportunity to welcome Dr. Sajjad and Dr. Dehshiri, and I am very pleased to be with you here at this edition, to have with us a voice from Iran, because we always feel that we don't know much about Iran, and we know a lot from Iran, from non-Iranian sources, and this applies sometimes even to the researchers. And when they deal with the Iranian issue, if they resort to some sources that are not Iranians. So, in general, I would like to say that the path of policies in Iran are going through some crucial stages, because we see the return of President Trump, which happens at different circumstances compared to 2016, and we have these conflicts in the region with participation of non-state actors besides Iran and Israel, and we have also a new government in Iran with new promises, a new action plan, and we also have this strategic positioning of Iran in competition between East and West, and it's not clear for us what will be the behavior of Iran towards this international competition, and I think this will have an impact on the position of the US and of the East in general. And in the midst of these reactions, there are different wrong impressions and misconceptions about Iran, and we've noticed that in the last 8 years, but there are also some facts. Iran rightfully sometimes feel it's been wrongfully accused of things, but we can see also some facts of its behavior that we have seen in the last decades in the Middle East, like His Excellency Anwar Gargash in his keynote speech said, we have a problem with the militias, and Iran is not the only country that has produced militias in the region, but Iran is responsible for more than 90% of the militias militia movements in the region. And we have also a crucial issue is that those militias are exceeding the Shiite environment, and they're going beyond that, and they're looking for new host countries for political Islam, and in alliance with other organizations such as Muslim Brotherhood. There are some attempts to infiltrate Sudan and Libya and even Egypt, and to expand in Afghanistan and Pakistan through militia, which are evolving every day. So we are getting closer to a point where getting rid of those militia will not be possible without getting rid of those political systems surrounding them. In Lebanon, we cannot, for example, we are witnessing the danger of getting rid of Hezbollah, which will be accompanied by the failure of the whole state, which means that we need a new approach and a new system, and the neighbors and our friends in Iran should be cooperative, and this positive position in the summit towards Iran means that there are lots of support, and we have seen different countries in the region. When Israel attacked Iran, there was a condemnation statement for attacking the embassy or the assassination of Hania. If you allow me to take this point and move to Dr. Sajjad.
I don't need you, maybe.
We've talked about de-escalation gestures from the GCC countries, particularly during the last summit in Riyadh. There was a lot of support for the integrity of Iranian borders. How does Iran look at this, de-escalation? I mean, we're moving away from a policy of isolation of Iran into a policy of openness to Iran. What does Iran see in that policy? What are the opportunities?
As Professor Dehshiri said, Iran is a rational actor. When you behave Iran well, of course, it will respond well. Furthermore, Iran and UAE and Saudi Arabia, we are living in the same place. We are neighbors. We are doomed to live together by the logic of geography, by the logic of history. So the better relationship between us, the better security of the region is going to be attained. So I think it is the consistent policy of Iran to have a good neighborly relationship with all neighbors, including the South. And I'm happy that it is a very significant steps that we are seeing in the region. Not just the summit, which was very important yesterday. I think it's a turning point. And we have to appreciate all our Arab neighbors for their support, as well as the other Muslim countries, because it was Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Absolutely. But I think we have seen bilaterals between Iran and its Arab neighbors improving day by day. As of 2 days ago, the chief of staff of Saudi Arabia was in Iran, which is, I think, if you compare historically in the region, that is a very important step forward in not just bilateral per se, it is a contribution to the regional peace and security.
Absolutely.
We are in the region, we are not going to leave the region, you are not going to leave the region, so the better understanding, and this is why these meetings are important, because it is a type of exchange of analysis of how we think, how you think. And may I end, I think, by one point. The vocabulary that we use, the words that we use, the way that we frame realities are it's very important for understanding as well as practice. I think you can say militias are, Iranian made, as Professor was saying, but I think it is not true. Why? Because look at Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a genuine Lebanese force against occupation. By simplification of using militia, you negate the complexity of Israeli occupation before, and you also simplify maybe the existing situation.
I think
each
we
of
might
these
need a long session.
each of these files differ. So I
absolutely.
advise analytically to be cautious in
We don't have
generalization.
an agreed upon definition on terrorism until now, so we might not get an agreed upon definition of militia.
Yeah.
But to move from this, you mentioned the point of the visit of the Chief of Staff of Saudi Arabia. Also, news that Iran is inviting Saudi Arabia to conduct maritime security, and before that, Oman conducted maritime security exercises with Iran. Dr. Dehshiri, are we seeing a manifestation of the HOPE initiative on maritime security, or this is just bilateral cooperation?
I think that Iran would like to cooperate with the Arab countries of the Persian Gulf region. Therefore, I think that whatever the joint maneuver with Saudi Arabia and Oman can be also extended to other countries. We are looking forward to cooperating with other countries of the region in this regard. With UAE and Qatar also it is possible. Therefore, Iran is open for cooperation, for regional cooperation with all of the countries of the region.
So, HOPE initiative, is it back on the table?
Of course, as you know, Dr. Pezeshkian motto was and has been neighborhood policy, and this neighborhood policy has been before. Dr. Rouhani has expressed the initiative of HOPE. Dr. Raisi also continued in this regard. Therefore, I think that Hormuz initiative would be also on the agenda.
Dr. Zghool, investment in Iran security, can it lead to security in the Gulf? And I think the same question can go to Iran. In what sense can we invest in Iran security?
يعني أنا لا أشك بأنه
I have no doubt that any threat for Iranian security will affect the Gulf security and vice versa. And the Gulf states have proved through different situations that they have good intention towards Iran as a neighbor in terms of geopolitical and cultural and social aspects, and also the common identity and Islamic identity. And we have apparently a good role model in terms of economic relationship with Iran. By history, it has proved that it's very successful in managing conflicts, even when there is a conflict, but there is economic cooperation between the countries. Then the Iranian decision and the Emirati decision regarding the conflicts take a different path. And the last 2 years, we have seen different experiences, and I think we need to extend those experiences to other countries in the region, and this allows us to refine the politics in general. So what is hindering the communication and outreach? We have real problematic in the region. We have seen the economic desertification. There are some spots of crises. The crisis is not limited to those spots, but it will expand from the middle to outside. Dr. Mohammed, from that point, if we can ask another question, 30 years of Iranian isolation, and in the last 3 years, it has become a policy of openness and de-escalation. Have you seen any indicators of changes in the Iranian policy of de-escalation towards the crisis in the region? Yes, there is a positive change. We have seen that. For example, the language of threats used when Iran is under international and the regional pressure pressure. It used to immediately threaten the energy sources, energy corridors, or threats against neighboring countries. These things, we have not seen it recently. We have not seen it in the last escalation waves after October the 7th, and most of the threats of Iran were directed directly to the Israeli opponent, but did not affect the neighboring countries because this is the result of communication. But we can still say that the joint economic work is still not enough. Iran needs to benefit also from this international project with economic tools. And the problematic we are facing is that when Iran gets closer to economy, it's using non-economic tools and with a logic that's not based on economic competition. Many of the international corridors we spoke about, they are considered in Iran as being sources of threats and for isolating Iran and choking it strategically and push it to take action towards those economic corridors. But this is an economic activity. It should be dealt with some rationality and they look at it as some sort of economic militarization, and this should be considered. I will take this question to Dr. Sajjadpour later, but let me go to Dr. Dehshiri.
You know, we had this revision, and out of it came the principles of the 50. And one of the principles of the 50, which is the next 50 years for the UAE, was putting economy first above. One of the comments that I've heard about Iran is that Iran, not a country with an ideology, it's an ideology with a country. To what extent is this actually true? Does it really require a revision? Is the ideology is the first thing? The ideology is possibly the revolution, as my interlocutor was saying. Is this, you know, the number one defining element for Iran, or are the economic realities, as discussed by Dr. Zghool, are there and part of the calculation, the strategic calculation, as we've heard? And to what extent does it feature in that?
I think that Iran is a pragmatist country. Pragmatism has been always one of the main principles of our foreign policy. Of course, some issues related to Palestinian cause can be labeled as ideology, but this is also some sort of pragmatism in Iran's foreign policy for leading this issue, which also I would like to say that it is not a Shia issue as expressed by my friend. Iran is supporting Hamas. Hamas is not Shia. Therefore, this is an Islamic issue. Iran was always for the unity of Islamic Ummah. And therefore, if you see the rational calculation...
But Dr. Dehshiri, allow me to interrupt you. When you say Ummah, it is not a country anymore.
No.
So you're going across countries and you're either assuming responsibility or power over others. So are you aware to this diction that once you're talking that we are talking about an Islamic Ummah, you're not talking about a country to country anymore?
No. In OIC, what you say as Islamic community, this is expressed in Iran by Islamic Ummah. Therefore, if you perceive it as some sort of Iran's ideologization, no, it is not. In OIC, we always express that Islamic community would like to help Palestinian cause. Therefore, it is not ideology approach. I think the rationality in Iran's foreign policy has existed and exists for the time being.
Thank you very much. I want to follow up on this idea of either change or lack of change in Iran ideology. And Dr. Masoud Bazakshian announced that he's targeting a foreign direct investment for Iran for $100 billion. That is, a target that he has put out as part of his presidency. Also, when he visited Iraq, he gave a boost to this Shalamja Basra railway, which is, quite interesting because it came after the big investment in the road development, as if Iran is saying, we want to be part of this connectivity agenda. We don't want to be away from it. Is there an understanding inside Iran that geoeconomics is the new game in town and they need to be part of it? Or this is not really a big thing?
For sure, actually, I think Iran is very concerned about economic situation, both nationally and regionally. And actually, during the presidential debates that we had in Iran 4 months ago, it was clear that economy is very significant and pivotal. By chance, I was one of the 3 researchers or experts or professors who interviewed all these 6 candidates on TV. So I was very attentive, of course, on foreign policy, attentive to what they say. And that's very interesting. In foreign policy, they were all also focusing on economics. So there is a very deep understanding that economic issues are very important. And interestingly, connectivity with neighbors is, let's say, the common denominator among all, that if you want to improve, it is not just improve economic situation, it is not having a wall around your borders, you have to be connected to neighbors. And the fact that President Pezeshkian had his first visit to Iraq, and in Iraq he had different stops, that means Basra, Erbil, Soleimania, along with Baghdad. One of the major themes of his trip was economic cooperation. And I think it is not just Iraq per se, it's also with other neighbors. And I have to report to you that it is working, because it is mutually beneficial for all bilaterals. Furthermore, underlying concept, if you don't blame me for conceptualization, is interdependence. When you create economic interdependence, the byproduct would be security. The byproduct would be stability. Because when people look, we have a good number of Iraqi medical tourists to Iran. Of course, they come for ziyarah, but also for medical tourism. This time, and it's a source of income for Iranian medical establishment. But this is also a contributing factor to peace and security in the region. So economic independence, I think, is a key. And I'm happy that the neighborhood also is having the same conceptualization.
Now, you're identified as an advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Iran. Do you advise him on connectivity? What does Iran see itself in connectivity?
Of course, my points are here, are personal view as a professor. But of course, I think there is a consensus. You know, Iran foreign policy is a debated issue. We debate inside ourselves, different circles, academia, policy circles. But and I am in several of these meetings regularly on weekly basis and monthly basis. And what's interesting is the consensus. The consensus is that economy is very important, connectivity is very important, and regardless of the political situation and security in the region, we have not to forget these issues of economic nature, including connectivity.
But it is not still a number 1 priority.
I think it's very difficult to say which one is number 1. I think for all countries, I guess including yours, security is number 1 priority. And to provide security for your citizen, territorial integrity, I think, is a universal common goal of all countries, including yours and us. But how you really attain your security, it depends on situational factor, contextual factors. We have 15 neighbors. I think we are the second most neighbored nation on the earth. So our context is different. It means in some areas we have to be very focused on the daily security issue. But generally, there is a consensus that economic is very important. You even can say, in some senses, some aspects, it is the first priority.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
This is good news, or news actually. Dr. Dehshiri, I want to enlarge this discussion and talk about the world order, because we've heard a lot of discussions the first days, and a lot of them were from the point of view of Iran. Does it see that the world order is unipolar, bipolar, multipolar, or more interconnected, where polarity does not really matters? You know, you can connect to other countries that you do not agree with, but and you can, you know, exchange services, goods, even though they do not match your own preferences or ideology. Where does Iran see the world forging?
We think that the issue of polarity is not now the issue, our main issue. What is important is the dimensionality. That means the dimensions of power are very important. We are focusing on soft power. We are focusing on AI and also for becoming a stabilizing actor in the region. We think that there is some sort of interconnection between regional and emerging actors and international and major powers. Therefore, we should not, the international system is not top-down approach. There is also bottom-up approach to international system, so that the regional players also can have their own right to play their role in this conjuncture. Also, we think that we should not have inclusive, exclusive approach, as I told you. Therefore, some countries of the region and also external powers would like to exclude Iran as a regional power and a stabilizing actor from the international security arrangement. Iran would like to play its positive and constructive role. Therefore, we think that weaponization of corridors is counterproductive, and therefore we are seeking to have...
Can you explain what do you mean by weaponization of corridors?
I mean that Iran also would like to be part of the connectivity in the region. And we have also our corridor of south-north corridor that relates Chabahar to Central Asia and also to Transcaucasia. We have two ways in this regard. Therefore, we have our geopolitical importance. We would like to become a main actor in this region. Not only we can be part of Belt and Road Initiative, but also we would like to become the actor that would like to link the countries, the southern countries of Persian Gulf to Transcaucasia and also Eurasia. Therefore, we think that if you would like to exclude Iran, you would like to weaponize the corridors as an issue of power competition. we would like to cooperate, not to compete.
Understood. Dr. Zghool, you're watching Iran from the Gulf. And to what extent is this Iran developing its own connectivity agenda or possibly be part of a wider agenda is seen for an observer like you?
I think that the issue is related to the concept or the logic of the game. You can't use in economic game with the military or with political. So when we talk, I agree with Dr. Dehshiri that Iran feels that it is being marginalized and this from the path or the corridors, and of course Iran has the right to seek its interest and be a part of the regional context, and you cannot exclude a country and I'll put it under siege and then we expect them to act normally. But of course there are conditions in order to be in this game, in economic game, as per the logic of this game, not as per any other logic. There are some political decisions that we can say that are the decisions that reform the infrastructure or the structure. So with the Iranian decision to establish these more than 19 militia, some of them are weaponized with weapons that are not available even for the countries or national states. So this decision with the reformation of the geopolitics of the Middle East restructured the structure of the Iranian decision. Iran became a captive of a decision it made, and they can't move to another economic game with economic tools because the relationship between the militia and Iran is not a one-side party, or it is a two-sides road with the Hezbollah has an impact in Tehran, and Tehran has an impact on Hezbollah. So such an impact will draft the structure of the decision-making in Iran. So the decision-making in Iran will work as per priorities, military priorities, in line with this, or as per this war right now between Iran and its enemies. This is dominating even the economic decision in Iran. And we know that Iran, and we see Iran is dealing with corridors issues like the Europe-Indian corridor, sometimes with the military practices, exercises, and also pushing the militia to act hostile against these actors in the region. So the logic that leads Iran is not an economic logic. So this is not conventional among the world states. If we want to be a part of economic game, we can't use these tools. So it is all depending on this decision, or this that forms the Iranian decision. So the Iranian decision needs to be free from the impact of militia, and we know that the national state in Iran needs all our support, because we think the national state, we cannot support the national state in Lebanon, Iraq, and Sudan in confrontation against the militia, and then we ignore the support of the national state in Iran. It is a must, and we all say that the narrative that we have in the heads of the government, Rouhani, Peshkan, all the heads of the governments, whether from the right, from the reform, from the middle, all are concerned to enhance their national state, because the government represents the national state, and they are really impacted with pressures from outside. This pressure is coming from the other parties inside, what are relevant to the military decision, and sometimes they hold the war and peace decision, the regional conflicts decision. All of these will put pressures on the Iranian government to take an action that is not appropriate to the game they are doing.
I need to come back to you, Dr. Sajjadpour, on this issue, because what Dr. Zghool seems to describe is more of the Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde appearing in this economic agenda. Where is the Dr. Jekyll here? where is the innovator? Where is the, the sophisticated intellectual Dr. Jekyll in this equation? Because I think, at least from what I see, there has been a consistency. Even Iran has went into an abrupt change of power from President Raisi, late President Raisi, to President Pezeshkian. There has been an abrupt change of power. However, it seems to me that the policy towards the region has maintained this, we haven't seen a big shift in that. So to me, that is Dr. Jekyll. There is some sort of consistency. The discourse is a discourse of economy. The discourse is a discourse of hope. Can we rely on Dr. Jekyll to stay longer than usual?
I think it's a very interesting debate, but it takes a lot of time to really go through it. But again, I think we have to be polishing our concepts, ABC again. I think the assumption beyond all this question and the comment that we heard from our distinguished co-panelists is in need of being deconstructed. When you talk about militias, I think it's a very general simplification of a very complicated regional setting. Each country has its own logic, and I think own dynamism and contextuality and simplification of equating all with one concept, I think analytically doesn't result to really understanding. So the assumptions, which is also based on your binary question, should be revisited and reconstructed. B, I think the building blocks of Iranian approach toward the region should be also analyzed. It's not one single variable analysis. We have so many variables, including economic variables. It is not just one person, one issue, one institute. I think you are dealing with a set of building blocks you have to take into account for understanding, including security, economic, culture, history, the nature of the issues that they deal, the nature of crisis. We are dealing with Israeli aggression, which is totally unequivalent to other qualities that we had in the past, killing 50,000 of women and children and innocent people, and continuing and not being ready for a ceasefire. So it is one of the building blocks of this region. And the region is not just Arab-Israel conflict. Iran is at the center of 5 regions. We are connecting Central Asia, Caucasia, subcontinent, Eastern Mediterranean, Arab world. So it's very complex building block. But let's go to C. I think this is the spirit of Iranian policy, Iranian debate, Iranian calculation, strategy calculation, that cooperation is the key. We have to cooperate with our neighbors bilaterally and multilaterally, even for containing the, let's say, damages of insecure issues and dilemmas. We have to, it is through cooperation, security cooperation, economic cooperation, that we can manage. Even, I think, cooperation, I emphasize here because I really respect what Dr. Ebtesam is doing. Cooperation in analytical exchange. Cooperation in understanding how we see the world, how you see the world, how our neighbors see. What Professor Dehshiri mentioned about the dynamism of global politics, I think it is an issue that requires analytical cooperation. For example, the world is not anymore vertical, it is also horizontal, so there is a need for a horizontal perspective. So let me end by 2 sentences. Stay away from simplistic approach. Second, try to understand Iran based on this cooperative spirit.
And let's move on that note, even though the positive note is your emphasis on cooperation. I don't think you will find many people who, in this room, who would disagree with this. However, maybe they are. Let's listen to some of the questions that we have from the audience.
Let's
I
give
think
time to
Francis,
who is not agreeing with us in the debate. Yeah.
Francis Goss is the first question here. Francis, are you here?
Thank you very much. Dr. Dehshiri mentioned that Iran's against the weaponization of corridors. And again, very few of us could disagree with that. But in that spirit, do you think that the weaponization of the Bab el-Mandeb regarding a conflict that's real, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kilometers away, is a legitimate use of the weaponization of corridors?
Thank you. That's a good question. If you allow me, I will take two more questions and maybe we'll get the three. Dr. Khalid Bahah.
شكرا. سوف أتفق مع
Thank you. I agree with Dr. Sajjad about the atmosphere that we have for thoughts and not for the political stances. So when we talk about the Iranian constitution, there are clear articles talking about the intervention in order to help the vulnerable across the globe, and all contradicts with the international laws. I think that's with this constitution, Iran maybe killed more people than Israeli killed in the last decades. So people are looking at Zionism, looking at the Israel. We see that Iran destroyed more than Israel did. So we want this concept that we change these 50 years of conflict. And I remember the last 10 years, Prince Mohammed bin Salman said in the investment conference, we said 50 years of conflict, 50 years of ideologies, and he announced it clearly and frankly. We are going to give up these ideologies, and we are heading to a topic that is getting nearer to each other and closer to each other. We didn't see our neighbors in Iran understanding this language or understand this message. The people are talking different language now. They changed the language over the years, but Iran still holds the same language. And I think today we have an opportunity to change, because what happened destroyed all of us, impacted all of us, not only the Arab region, but also Iran has lots of difficulties with our social and economic because of this. So we hope that Iran will be a model, and we have the Turkish model that is close. We can compare it to the Iranian model. So the Turkish model is not exporting revolution, is not exporting ideology. Even when they wanted to do this in the last few years, the area or the region stopped it. So Turkey retreated, and we want a brave decision from Iran now to support the integration in the region with the, at the social and political. But if they stay in the same position, we will have the same lock towards Iran. Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid, for having this.
Dr. Jaubo.
Yeah, I would like to ask a question to the Iranian delegate, because China is the largest user of shipping in Suez Canal, and Iran's apparent support to Houthis definitely affect the China's interests strongly, to the extent that most of our ships have to sail through Cape of Good Hope. So have you ever talked to Houthis what to do? I think China has already told the Iranian side, on this issue, but I don't know how exactly China has actually told you. Could you do something there?
Thank you very much. We have two questions on the openization of corridors, and both of them has to do with a group that is armed by Iran. So who would like to take that question?
I would like to say, firstly, that whatever is expressed as Iranian militia or proxy actors, is not correct. They are indigenous actors based on the will of their own nation. Therefore, they do not receive any order from Iran. They are independent in their actions. Therefore, I think that if you would like to solve the issue of corridors, you should not push pressure on Iran. You should push pressure on Israel, which is the source of tension. The Houthi expressed always that if you would like to, that this tension would be resolved, the Israeli occupation of Gaza should be terminated. If this issue would be terminated, therefore, the issue is resolved. Therefore, Iran is nothing in this regard for weaponization of...
If I may, we're asking, for instance, the US to stop arming Israel. Can we ask Iran to stop arming the Houthis?
Iran thinks that it is not the issue that Houthi should do or not. I think that the priority in this regard is the genocide acts of Israeli regime. That should be terminated.
Now, Dr. Sajjadpour, the question from Dr. Khalid Baha. Is there a time when Iran can say something similar to what the Saudi Crown Prince said? This is enough of 50 years of ideological warfare. We need to start a new era. Did we have, or can we have, a strong position from Iran saying this? Do you expect this happening?
I think, again, ABC, accusation. Dr. Khalid is accusing, it's very shocking for me as an Iranian to hear that Iran has killed more than Israelis. I think it is an accusation. He should prove. It is very wrong at this juncture of history that Israel is killing so many innocent people. An Arab friend comes and, accuses Iran. I think it is really dangerous. Why? B, we have either blame game or analysis. Blame game is very easy. I can blame Dr. Khalid that he is right now representing Israeli view because he wants to change the course here, that Israel is under international, let me finish. Let me finish. Under international scrutiny for killing so many innocent people is diverting the attention to a very artificial, constructed narrative. But see, look, complex issues have complex analysis and complex solutions. And it regards also to the question which was answered by Dr. Dehshiri, and I answer again. The issue of Red Sea, Houthis are complex issues. It's not that Tehran calls, Houthi and they say, okay, we stop it. You have to go to the root cause of the situation in Red Sea. The cause is Israel. The cause is suppression of Palestinians. The cause is the connectivity between the hearts of Yemenis, Iraqis,
but Dr.
everybody with the Palestinian cause. They say we don't leave Palestinians to the, let's say, fire of Israelis alone. We are supporting them. So let's understand issues and don't make, let's say, easy connection. I think it is not Houthis per se. It is not the issue of Red Sea. It is the issue of region being connected emotionally, spiritually, rationally, geographically, and geopolitically. So they are connected, and you cannot just take one drop of an ocean.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
but can we please focus on this question? Can we see a position, an obvious position from Iran saying, we're done with the 50 years of conflict, we're open for another 50 years?
I think the assumption is wrong. We are not part of any conflict. We have been the victim of Iraqi aggression. We fought for 5 years defending our country.
From blame game.
We are the victim of American sanctions. We are the victim of a lot of plots against us. Actually, Trump came and withdrew from JCPOA, and now it's very interesting in this conference I hear that there is an understanding that Trump shouldn't go to that policies because it was harmful for our neighbors in the south. It was harmful. I mean, these are the issues of interconnectivity that we have to understand. We have not, it doesn't mean that we don't have our challenges, we don't have our debates, but the issue is don't replace the victim with the aggressor. This is the point.
Thank you very much. I think we have very little time, have more questions, but I'm afraid that we cannot do that. I will turn to Mohammed for a concluding remark if you have. We have 1 minute.
نعم.
Haida. Thank you very much. I just wanted to illustrate that we cannot, as Dr. Sajjadpour said, that we cannot solve the issues and the problem in a meeting like this or a panel like this, but we expected that we are going to search references or intellectual framework for our disputes and our points. We see the problem that we have in this intellectual framework. Are we willing to talk all about national state or the logic of the transnational concept that's crossing the borders, away from the international norms? Are we talking about the economic game? We're talking about win-win scenario and peace tools without showing power, without interception of ships, without explosions here and there. So when we talk about references, reference here is not, we don't have a common reference for this. When we don't have a common reference, the dialogue will be impossible or not feasible. So the basis of the dialogue is to have a common intellectual reference, because we are representing countries, and these countries or states are working based on international laws and rules and regulation, national laws and regulation under one frame. So are we talking about national states? Are we talking about the logic of economic games? Regardless, Dr. Mohammed, I'm really happy and pleased to have this hour of discussion.
Actual discussion. I will have to thank all of you for tolerating my questions. I have to thank Dr. Tissam for allowing this platform for such a discussion. Thank you very much.